ever bought a strange food out of curiosity or to develop a diverse and cultured palate? You know the food is edible, but have no idea how to cook it or prepare it. For me, that food was the incredibly exotic green cabbage. I was exploring a farmer's market where I met a farmer selling a cabbage, so I bought one. In a state of cluelessness and then research, I learned how to prepare it. Ferment the cabbage into sauerkraut. Fermentation gave me a new hobby, and it opened me to a world of flavors. It requires me to work with my hands, to understand microorganisms, and demands an appreciation for slow, intentional work, which has been a refreshing antidote to the pace of our modern lives. Fermentation is the controlled art of producing and preserving food. Microorganisms convert carbohydrates into alcohol, acids, enzymes, and carbon dioxide. In the process, the color, the taste, the texture, and aroma of the food will change. The microorganism, a bacteria, a yeast, a fungus, a mold, will vary depending if you're fermenting cabbage into sauerkraut, milk into kefir, or barley into beer. In any case, it is the unseen microorganism who is the champion of this transformative work. To make sauerkraut, for example, all you do is mix chopped cabbage and salt in a bowl and mash it together with your hands. The salt, plus the mechanical action of your hands, draws water out of the vegetable through osmosis. You can even punch it like it's a punching bag. And I've determined there's no need to punch someone in the face if you have a cabbage lying around. So always have a cabbage lying around. After getting out your anger, pack the cabbage into a jar and keep it submerged underneath the layer of brine. Acids are produced by naturally occurring bacteria, which creates a highly selective environment where only these bacteria can thrive. They will outcompete any pathogens for food. So it's like the jungle. If I try to go and live in the jungle, I would be outcompeted for food, and I would die. After it's packed below the brine, seal the lid on the jar, and then every day for a few weeks, you're going to burp the kraut, which just means slightly removing the lid to let carbon dioxide escape, and you'll hear an audible burp. After a few weeks, it's ready to eat. And by the way, nothing's more romantic than inviting a woman over to burp some kraut. Sauerkraut is my favorite food to ferment because it's incredibly easy. All you need is cabbage and salt, but there's a lot of room for creativity. If you like the taste of rye bread, mix in caraway seeds. Take your taste buds on a ride with garlic and dill or turmeric and ginger. In the summertime, mix in tomatoes, beets, peppers, and onions, or just do these vegetables on their own. Even Captain Cook understood sauerkraut. He brought 8,000 pounds of kraut on board the Endeavour in the 1700s because sauerkraut is high in vitamin C, which prevents scurvy. The microorganisms that make fermentation possible allowed us to explore the world before the inventions of freezing and refrigeration. Drinking water could be the source of cholera or dysentery, but beer and wine proved to be much safer options. Cheese lasts much longer than fresh milk because it's fermented, and even salami undergoes a fermentation process that makes it more shelf-stable. The lesson here, beer and wine allowed us to explore the world, but somehow the compass and the maps seem to get all the credit. I feel more life in me when I'm consuming a homemade kefir or kombucha or kimchi, and I give this credit to the millions of microorganisms that make these foods possible. They satisfy my soul, and they nourish my gut. And our gut is 28 feet long. It's lined with more than 250 billion bacteria. That's more than there are stars in our galaxy. So with the knowledge that bacteria create our most celebrated foods and are ubiquitous inside of us, I believe we should re-examine the way we think about bacteria. Raise your hand if you hear the word bacteria and normally would think bad. It's been easy for us to say bacteria are bad since the discovery of the role that microbes play in the cause of some diseases. But today we're giving antibiotics at the sign of any illness. We load hand sanitizer into our backpacks and shopping carts and purses. And we have wipes that promise to kill 99.9% of germs. But many estimates say that less than 1% of bacteria cause disease in humans. So maybe we need a wipe that keeps 99% of bacteria alive, or a probiotic mouthwash, or a probiotic hand soap. Because today, 700,000 people die every year from antimicrobial resistance. Even the American Medical Association understands that the use of antimicrobials in consumer products leads to acquired resistance. I have learned that the war against bacteria is futile because they have evolved faster than us. Bacteria exhibit horizontal gene transfer, which would be like reaching out to your neighbor, grabbing a favorable gene, and incorporating that into your body. I believe if we understand the role they play in our food world, we can understand the role they play in our entire world. Let's work with them and not against them. Food enables life, and fermentation is a tool that makes life taste better. It has led me to think about the invisible microbial universe, and it's taught me how to control it to my advantage. The connection between science and art becomes incredibly transparent when you ferment. I can do the research and see which species of bacteria or yeast are doing hard work for me fermenting, and being paid a fair wage, of course. At the same time, I can appreciate daily changes in color and texture and aroma, which connects me to this transformative process. Since it takes several weeks to create sauerkraut, cheese, or wine, fermentation also provides a lesson in patience and planning. If you want to create a Christmas present, you have to start in October or sooner. Your family and friends will receive the gift with joy, and they'll be munching and sipping for weeks to come. To ferment is a process, and this process can't be bought online with free 2-day shipping. My recommendation is to start fermenting something you enjoy. A wild yeast sourdough bread, kefir from fresh milk, or an habanero garlic hot sauce. But I'll warn you, fermentation is incredibly addicting. The kitchen is my laboratory, and some people say I become a mad scientist because of the bacteria. There's jars and crocks and carboys, gurgling, bubbling, and evolving through the cover of the night. But it's incredibly fulfilling. It allows me to work with my hands and allows me to create highly personalized gifts. And although there's guidelines for fermenting, as in how much salt to use or fermentation time and temperature, there really are no rules. Just let your curiosity and your interests take over and see what works out for you. Delayed gratification is a compelling reason for a millennial to start fermenting. But for me, the most important reason is the invisible microbial universe that fermentation creates inside of a jar. It's an incredibly fulfilling hobby, and fermentation has led me down a wild path that I could not have imagined would have started with a humble green cabbage. When in doubt, make some kraut.